Few things are as lonely as seeing what others can't see. Carl Jung knew this. He understood that lucidity has a price, and that consciousness, as liberating as it may seem, can also be a prison. When you begin to see beyond the surface of people, beyond social masks, beyond the illusions of the world, you discover something uncomfortable. Most people don't want to see. Most cannot stand the light of truth. And because of this, those who wake up too soon are often called crazy, arrogant, dangerous, or simply different. Jung lived this isolation. As he explored the abysses of the unconscious, he came across truths that the world was not yet ready to hear. While others sought answers outside, he dove inside. And it was in this dive that he discovered something profound. The more aware you become, the more difficult it is to remain among those who are still asleep. Clear vision is a bitter blessing. It frees you from the lie, but distances you from those who still live in it. You begin to see patterns that no one notices, the motivations hidden behind words, the pain masquerading as virtues, the fear that masquerades as power. And over time, he realizes that the whole world is a theater and that most actors don't even know they're acting. Jung called this expansion of consciousness. It is the process in which the soul opens up to deeper dimensions of reality, but also moves away from common sense. Because seeing what others don't see takes courage, and often loneliness. The truth is that conscience is not comfortable. It hurts. She takes off the veil, and with it goes the ignorance that made life lighter. Awakening is not a gentle miracle, it is an inner fire. It is the moment when the human being realizes that the world outside himself is only the reflection of what he carries inside. And this perception changes everything. The problem is that when you realize this, you stop fitting in. Superficial conversations tire you out. Empty ambitions bore you. Appearance games hurt you. And what once seemed normal to you now sounds false. Not because you became better than others, but because you just started to see. Jung said that the awakened soul is like someone who lights a lantern in the middle of the night. As she tries to show the way, the others are bothered by the light. And instead of approaching, they prefer to attack her. Because the light reveals what they don't want to see, the shadow itself. That's why seeing what others don't see is dangerous. Because the mere fact of seeing already makes you a threat. The collective unconscious defends itself from individual consciousness. It wants to preserve the illusion of normalcy, it wants to keep the herd together in the comfortable darkness of ignorance. And every soul that dares to ascend becomes a mirror that the group tries to break. History is full of examples like this. From Socrates to Jung, from mystics to scientists, everyone who has seen anything beyond time has been judged, ridiculed, or exiled. Because human beings fear that which exposes their own limitations. And every new truth is, in the beginning, a heresy. But Jung understood that the danger of seeing what others don't see isn't just outside, it's inside. Because when you start to see more, you also start to feel more. You perceive the hidden energies in the words, the weight of the intentions, the discomfort of the environments. You feel the invisible, and you are not always prepared for it. Conscience is a gift, but also a burden. It forces you to grow faster than you would like. It requires spiritual maturity. Because once you see it, you can no longer pretend you didn't see it. And this is the true point of no return of the soul. Jung said that the most dangerous life is the life of the mind that sees too much. To see beyond the surface is to see chaos, the chaos of the world and the chaos within. You begin to realize that good and evil are not outside, but within each other. And this destroys the innocence of the soul. But it is precisely this destruction that gives rise to wisdom. To see what others do not see is to be chosen by the truth, and every choice for the truth is an act of rebirth. But like every birth, it comes with pain. You lose your innocence, but you gain clarity. He loses company, but finds presence. He loses the illusion of belonging, but discovers communion with something greater. Consciousness, Jung said, is the most solitary and sacred process that a human being can experience. Because it is the way back to one's own soul. And only those who have crossed the desert of solitude know that true light never comes from outside. It comes from the inner fire that emptiness has ignited. So if the world calls you different, if silence feels heavy, If you see too much it hurts you, remember, you're not going crazy. You are awakening. And awakening, for Jung, has always been the greatest act of courage of the soul. Carl Jung said that, "He who looks outside, dreams. He who looks inward, awakens." But awakening has a price, the price of separation. Because when you start to see what others don't see, the world stops understanding you. You become different. And what is different in a society that values conformity is seen as a threat. The collective unconscious moves like a body, and that body rejects what does not obey its instincts. When a soul awakens, it starts to vibrate at another frequency, and this new vibration disturbs the illusory balance of the crowd. Jung called this the conflict between the individual and the collective. The collective lives in the shadow of unconsciousness. It repeats patterns, is guided by norms, protects itself in similarity. But the awakened individual breaks with this hypnosis. He questions. And questioning is the first act of spiritual rebellion. The danger of seeing what others don't see isn't just being rejected by others, it's being confronted by a world that tries to erase your lucidity. Society fears those who see, because seeing is the same as unmasking. And the collective ego lives on masks. He needs narratives, labels, certainties. He needs to believe that he is in control. But the awakened soul sees the farce and silently threatens the balance of all who are still asleep. That is why Jung said that individual consciousness is the greatest danger to the collective unconscious. Because it only takes one awake soul for the lie of 1,000 sleepers to begin to crumble. And the collective cannot stand this mirror. He would rather attack the truth than question his own illusion. If you've ever noticed what no one else has noticed, if you've seen behind the intentions, if you've ever seen the shadow hidden in the smile, you know what this loneliness is. It's like walking in a world that speaks a language you no longer understand. Conversations seem empty, values seem distorted, time seems to run differently. You feel out of place, but not because you are lost. It is because you no longer belong to unconsciousness. And this is where the danger becomes internal. Because many times, those who see too much begin to doubt themselves. Jung lived this intensely. During his deepest studies of the unconscious, he faced the fear of his own sanity. He said, diving into the soul is always a risk. Because if you go deep enough, what you find will not only be light, it will also be the primordial chaos from which all consciousness was born. To see what others do not see is to touch chaos. It is to perceive the fragility of beliefs, the game of forces between good and evil, the duality that inhabits each human being. And if the ego is not prepared, this view can become destructive. What should be expansion becomes fear, because the ego tries to control what is too vast to be controlled. That is why Jung always warned, consciousness without spiritual anchorage becomes arrogance. And pride is the fall of the observer. Those who start to see too much, but forget to see themselves, end up getting lost. Because the vision that liberates can also go crazy if it is not accompanied by humility. There is a point at which knowledge needs to turn into silence. Jung's wisdom was precisely this, to know how to stop interpreting and start feeling. He said that excess lucidity without love turns into arrogance. And love is what keeps the vision in balance. Seeing what others don't see is a gift, but also a responsibility. Because the truth, when it is not understood with compassion, becomes an instrument of pain. This is why souls who see too much end up drifting away. Not out of contempt, but out of care. They understand that it is not possible to force others to see what they are not yet ready to see. And they learn the value of silence. Silence becomes shelter. It is in it that the lucid soul finds rest from the noise of the world. Jung said that no one can light another, he can only light his own candle. And this is exactly what the awakened individual learns. He realizes that the true path is not to convince, it is to inspire. It is to live in such a way that one's own presence becomes an invitation to awaken, not an imposition. But the danger still exists. Because the more light a person carries, the stronger the shadow that casts behind him. And this shadow, the fears, the vanities, the pride of knowing more, is what needs to be constantly observed. The awakened soul, if it is not humble, becomes blinded by light itself. And that is why Jung said that consciousness is a fire that can both heat and destroy. To see what others do not see is to walk a tightrope between the sky and the abyss. On the one hand, the light of understanding, on the other, the emptiness of insanity. And balance is only possible when the heart learns to walk along with the mind. Lucidity without love is coldness. Empathy without discernment is an illusion. But the union of the two is wisdom, and that is the true Jungian view. Jung believed that the lucid soul must learn to live between mundos, calm one foot in concrete reality and the other in invisible. Calm the mind awake, but the heart leave. Calm courage to see, but humility to understand that the world is not always ready. That is the danger and beauty of seeing what others do not see. You become a keeper of truths that cannot yet be spoken out loud. And he needs to learn to carry them in silence, with reverence, like someone holding a flame in the midst of darkness. There is a moment when the pain of seeing turns into understanding. Once you resist, after trying to get back to being normal, you realize that there is no going back. The awakening is irreversible. And then what was once weight begins to become purpose. Carl Jung said that the conscious soul carries within itself a silent mission, to bring light where the world does not yet see it. But that light is not a torch raised. It is a calm presence, a lived wisdom, a serenity that speaks without words. Those who see too much have not come to convince, but to witness. They have not come to change others, but to keep alive the remembrance that there is something beyond the collective illusion. After going through isolation, comes a new kind of strength. You learn to be among those who sleep without missing your own awakening. You go back to the world, but you don't mix in the same way anymore. He talks less, observes more. He judges less, understands more. Because it realizes that each human being is exactly at the point where they need to be in order to grow. The danger of seeing what others do not see then becomes a gift, but only for those who endured the silence without getting lost. For those who did not let pride contaminate their vision, nor fear erase it. Seeing is a power, but it is also a responsibility. And spiritual maturity is what defines what you will do with this vision. Jung believed that conscience is not a prize. It is a duty. He who sees more must love more. He must understand more, forgive more, carry with more humility the burden of knowing that the world is not ready. Because true wisdom does not point fingers, it stretches out hands. It does not place itself above, it descends to the other. And in that silent gesture, he heals what the collective ego destroys. He who sees beyond becomes a bridge. Between the conscious and the unconscious. Between shadow and light. Between the human and the divine. But this bridge needs to be sustained by humility, or it collapses. Because the greater the vision, the greater the risk of being confused with the light itself. Jung warned, no one is so enlightened that he does not carry shadows. And it is this remembrance that keeps the human visionary, centered, at peace. Seeing what others do not see is, deep down, a call of the soul. A call to serve, not to shine. Awakened consciousness does not seek recognition, it seeks meaning. She understands that there is a divine timing for every revelation. And for this reason, the wise man speaks only when silence is no longer enough. True awakening is not to shout the truth. It is to live so consistently that the truth becomes visible by itself. And that is why Jung said that which does not become conscious in you will dominate your life and you will call it destiny. The visionary is the one who has already seen his own unconscious and, therefore, lives in inner freedom. He doesn't need to prove anything because he has already integrated the shadow. Danger, then, turns into direction. Because what was loneliness becomes service. You understand that seeing beyond is not a punishment, but an invitation. An invitation to live in alignment with something greater, invisible and silent. And when he accepts this invitation, everything around him changes. You stop wanting to wake up others, and you start taking care of your own light. Because he knows that the only way to enlighten the world is to be an example of lucidity and compassion. Jung called this individuation, the process by which the human being becomes whole. And to become whole is, paradoxically, to accept one's own halves. good and evil, shadow and light, human and divine. He who sees beyond does not deny duality, he hugs her. He understands that darkness is necessary for light to have meaning, and this understanding brings a peace that the world cannot give. The conscious soul learns to live on two planes at the same time, the visible and the invisible. It acts in the world, but it belongs to the spirit. She talks to people, but she listens to the universe. She knows that every encounter, every obstacle, every look carries a message from the unconscious. And that's why he lives with presence. Nothing is by chance. Nothing is wasted. Everything has a symbolism. But there is something even deeper in Jung's teaching. To see what others do not see is also to see the beauty that they have forgotten. The awakener does not only see the shadow, he also sees the hidden light in the darkest places. He sees love hidden in pain, wisdom in losses, growth in falls. And this look is the cure, because it gives back to the world the ability to see itself with compassion. Danger, therefore, dissolves when vision becomes love. For the soul that sees with love does not judge. She understands. She understands that everyone walks towards the same light, just at different times. And this understanding liberates. You stop fighting the unconsciousness of others and start living in coherence with your own light. And it is this coherence that silently transforms everything around. Jung said that the highest form of wisdom is the acceptance of what is. And the visionary learns this. He understands that it is not his role to change the world, but to remain awake within it. Because the real revolution takes place in the invisible, in the field of consciousness. And every awakened soul, even in silence, alters the fabric of the collective. So if seeing too much makes you feel out of place, remember, you're not weird, you're needed. You are one of those who sustain the balance between what the world is and what it can become. Its lucidity is a candle lit in the midst of the darkness of human unconsciousness. And even if few see its light, it illuminates paths that you will never know existed. The danger of seeing what others do not see, in the end, is only the beginning of the courage to live with the eyes of the soul. Seeing is not a curse, it is a calling. And those who respond to that call become invisible guides, silent healers, seeds of a new consciousness. Carl Jung believed that the fate of humanity depends on the courage of a few individuals who dare to see. And maybe that's why the universe gave you this vision. Not to isolate you, but to remind you. You were born to see the unseen, and to transform it into living wisdom. And when you understand that, danger will become power. Pain will become purpose. And the weight of seeing too much will turn into the lightness of simply being.